I'm Grace Bramorn and you're listening to the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Think of the possibilities.
Hello and welcome back to the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. My name is Alanna Cunnane and we're joined once again by Hannah Tyrrell to run you through all the latest games. We've quite a bit of them to get through, so plenty to come now, Hannah.
Yeah, look, it's been a couple of weeks since the last show and plenty of action and some surprising and interesting results along the way.
There is surely. Obviously, UL Bohs still lead the table and we'll run you through all of that in just a minute. But we have a few different bits and pieces to run you through first. Two Old Belvedere women nominated for the 2023 Rugby Writers Player of the Year award, Hannah.
Yeah, look, obviously it's great. Putting my bias aside, look, I've obviously been a big fan of Deirbhile Nic over the last year. You know, she had a standout WAL season last year. You know, she was fantastic for Munster and their best player in the Interpros, and then for Ireland, she got back into the squad after a while out and was a bit of a versatility player. So, you know, it's brilliant for her, and I think it's a great boost considering she's injured at the minute long term. So, very justifiably up for that. And Aoife Dalton, a young player who's burst on the scene the last while, playing in a difficult position at 13. You know, for me, that's the defensive linchpin of a team, and she's kind of nailed that down and put her best foot forward, and she's been a really good young addition, shows a lot of confidence. So two very well deserved players up for that award, and obviously an extra bit of happiness there for me that they're both from Old Belvedere.
Sam Monaghan, Nicola Friday and Niamh Jones also up for it. Bit of competition there, all right?
Yeah, look, obviously there's a reason it's Player of the Year. You know, you get the best of the best nominated. Sam Monaghan, she's been a stalwart for Ireland since she's come in the last couple of years. You know, does a lot of the grunt work that probably a lot of people don't see, but has a lot of skill and flair to show off too. Nicola Friday, you know, she was team captain before she retired, led the team really well, and she had a difficult job with her last year, but you know, did as best as she could to keep the morale up in the squad, and she was top try scorer for the team last year as well. You know, and again, her line out work and stuff like that, a lot of stuff goes unnoticed. And Niamh Jones obviously won this award last year. She's been phenomenal for this Irish team for the last number of years, and again, I don't know, look, it'll be tough to pick from these guys, but it is great to see obviously those three that we just mentioned all play in abroad in the 15s English Premiership, and so to have a couple of AIL players nominated as well is brilliant.
For sure. And speaking of the Irish collective, there was a new collective bargaining agreement agreed between the IRFU and Rugby Players Ireland. I thought this one kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but yeah, a few talking points out of that too.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing to come out of this is that, you know, it's for all contracted players, and that now finally brings the Irish women's 15s team and the 7s team under that. And a big thing to come out of it is obviously paternity and maternity leave for me, which is great, because, you know, a lot of players obviously would have usually would put off, you know, their careers and stuff like that. But we see obviously in England, they had something similar, and Abby Ward went off last year, had a baby, and has just come back playing again. And Irish players are now in a position where if they're at a point in their life where they want to do that, they don't have to essentially give up their job. You know, and it is brilliant. And there's so many other things to it. There's, you know, counselling being offered, and you know, being looked after outside of the pitch work and stuff like that. And just, it's certain standards being put in place, and it's great that the women get the exact same that the men are getting too. And it just puts us all on equal footing and allows people to move forward and have things that are kind of assured and settled in the background. It doesn't add any extra stress. So it is great to see.
It'll surely benefit on the pitch then in the long run as well, because like you say, for a long time the women's side especially didn't have these sort of benefits and added things, so it'll probably benefit that way too. Yeah,
look, it just takes a lot of stress away from players. Now they know, you know, what's set out and what guidelines are there. You know, there was stuff in place beforehand, but this kind of solidifies it, and as I said, puts us on an even footing with the men. So yeah, it alleviates some of that stress and allows them to focus with the on-pitch stuff and improving their game and putting in big performances.
Another talking point, of course, is the Women's Celtic Challenges to come back. It runs for a long time, I think, as well, 11 weeks. It's expanded this year, so it runs from December 18th all the way until March 3rd. What's your thoughts on it? There's going to be a lot of rugby to be played yet.
Yeah, look, I'm not too sure about this one yet. We spoke about this last year. It ran for the first time on a much smaller scale. Ireland came out on top of that, and there were a lot of players who did benefit and got a lot of game time from it, but the quality of opposition wasn't probably at the standard that we would have liked. I'm hoping that this year, with the increased duration, that means more matches, that the teams produced from other countries maybe has a better standard to it, and we can actually benefit a little bit from it. That will be a wait and see. My issue would be, does that now take some of our best players away from the women's AIL, and where does that leave us? Because again, they've already missed a bit of a chunk with the WXV3, and then, you know, in April the Six Nations comes around again. So from a standpoint, if the standard of play and opposition is really good, this can be good for players coming from AIL and provincials as a step up to international. But if we saw scorelines like we did last year, I don't know if that benefits us, and then does it harm our club sides?
And obviously it's been aimed to bring in a bit of a bridge of a gap between the Six Nations and the domestic and the international competitions. We've already spoke about how there is so much rugby going on. Do you think it could be an effect that way, that there's going to be a lot of tired bodies by the end of the season, I'm sure?
Yeah, like, well, you look at some of those international players. So they've been away in Dubai for, I think it was the best part of a month or so, maybe a little longer. They've come back in, they got stuck into club almost straight away, you know, and they want to do really well there and help their club. And then they, after Christmas, you know, they're into this long competition with lots of matches, and then they want to be fresh for the Six Nations. There's a chance that, you know, you end up having burnout from some players, you pick up injuries because of load management, you know, and that can have a knock-on effect then after the Six Nations going back to your club. Are you available or not? So there is a worry that, you know, this can have a negative for players. I do think more matches are always the way forward. You know, it's how we see the best players, how they improve, and, you know, show off some of the stuff they've been working on in training, and it's the best way to learn a lot of the time, particularly from a defensive point of view. But there is a case in point that when is too much, you know, too many games and negative things for players, and will they get a break again? Does that affect the AIL even more then? They don't have them again, and, you know, like, we have a couple of games now leading up to Christmas. Is that the last we're going to see of some of these international players for their club? And that's, you know, the club game is at the heart of it, and where we produce our players, and that's something that I just worry, you know, might be a negative that comes out of this.
Definitely something to keep an eye on anyways. Something that grabbed quite a lot of the headlines last week was Thomas Appleton, the Portuguese rugby captain. He made some comments with regards to women's rugby. He said, quote, that it wasn't particularly attractive nor very feminine. So I'm sure these things aren't helpful in the slightest when it comes to growing the women's game. And yeah, also there's so much women's rugby players have to give, and maybe that wasn't particularly, I suppose, highlighted in this clip.
No, look, I think really disappointing comments, particularly from a team captain of an international team, and a team who have, you know, had a really promising World Cup there, and we're getting a lot of media spotlight. There was an opportunity for him to increase participation in the game, give support to the women's side, and give support to his own, you know, Portuguese female team, you know, and I'm sure a lot of them are not too happy with some of his comments, and I think a lot of it is pure ignorance, to be honest. And for me, it tells me that he hasn't seen enough international rugby and even club rugby out there, because some of the skills in the game that we see, some of the players that we have are top class, and you know, I just think it's really disappointing to hear that the women's game, yes, it still is developing in an awful lot of countries, and maybe some of the quality of rugby that he's seen hopefully is a very limited amount, and he just hasn't broadened his horizons and seen some of the best matches that we have to offer. But just to be a role model and in the position that he is, it is very disappointing. And for him to say that it's not very feminine, you know, who is he to say this, you know, and to be remarking on female bodies and participation and all that sort of stuff. When it comes to the men's game, we don't bring in anything about, you know, their physical or their like body shape in terms of a negative thing, and it's just really disappointing, to be honest. It makes me really angry, and I'd love to actually have a chat to him face to face. But for me, it's pure ignorance, and he should know better. He should know better and be willing to support the female side of the game, because at the end of the day, we're all playing the same sport, and the skill on show out there from both the men and women's game is phenomenal.
It's such a great point as well, because even as you say, if that is his belief, if you put in the context of that would never be said about in a men's game at all, yeah, it's really, it hits home, right?
Yeah, and I just don't think that he'd be too happy, you know, if people were saying that, you know, the Portuguese men's team were crap and not good to watch and everything else. Now, luckily for them, as I said, they are an improving side. They had a really good World Cup and they actually are very entertaining to watch at the minute. But, you know, like, I just don't think it's a fair comment to make. And the men's side of the game gets so much more resources and opportunities and everything else, and the women are doing the best with what they have and still producing some phenomenal results and displays.
For sure. Well, if you want to see more reaction to that video, you can check out our very own HerSport's Deb and Mohammed reaction to it. But for now, we'll switch back to the Energia AIL. Here's a quick look at the table just to show you how things stand heading into our match reviews. So as you can see there, UL Bohs at the top on 34, Blackrock, Old Belvedere, Railway following the pack there, Ballincollig and Stonians holding out mid-table, and then Wicklow, Galwegians and Cook completing the set. These were the results of the latest game week. So plenty to chat about, as you can see there. We'll be diving into them per club anyways to start with, just because there's so much to recap on since the last time we spoke. But UL Bohs, Hannah, they're still sticking it out there at the top of the table.
Yeah, look, they don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. But no, look, they're fantastic, going really well with Fiona Hayes. You know, she is doing a really good job with them, you know, managing to bring through, as I mentioned the last day, a lot of really young, talented players and kind of get them to grips with the senior side of the game, while also having some experienced pros, you know, the likes of Chloe Pierce, Clodagh O'Halloran, Fee Reedy's still going, and they're missing a couple of players through injury, the likes of Nicole Cronin and stuff like that, but they're still using them, these experienced players, to bring the youth along, and they're getting a lot of traction and gain out of that, and they'd be very happy with the last couple of weekends, particularly obviously that huge result against Railway Union, and at home they dug out deep and managed to win that by 3 points, and they've a real star there in two young players, Kate Flannery and Chisholm Ugwueru. You know, they're going to be huge for them in the future, and if they can keep them healthy and keep them enjoying the game, UL Bohs will be hard to stop.
I feel like we talk about them every week at this week, not just good for the future, good for right now too. But we'll have a look at, you mentioned the Railway game, which is probably the highlight.
Railway are obviously very well coached. Stephen Costello took over from JC Cronin last year, and they would have had very good setup and structures and play, and you can see here Dee Roberts trying to get that forward pack moving really well. But big thing that UL Bohs have been really good at this year is their defence has been phenomenal. They haven't given them very many points at all. You know, they do concede a try here in the end, but they managed to hold out well in these tough conditions, and they're moving the ball quite well, and considering in these really, really difficult conditions and the wet conditions like today, I think that's just something that's huge for them. And you know, Nikki Coy's been great for Railway recently. Her kicking is much improved and she's slotting over conversions for fun. But Bohs, their forward pack, as I mentioned earlier, have been brilliant. You know, getting so much go forward and traction there, that it gives such a platform for those players, the likes, as I said, Kate Flannery and Chisholm Ugwueru, to get on the ball and you know, do really, really well. And look, Fee Hayes will only be delighted. Railway be very, very disappointed, having travelled all the way down there, and to come so close and to lose by 3 points is it's gut wrenching. You know, and to win on the road is always a really nice feeling. But in this instance, Bohs were well worth their win. But it's great to see competitive and tight games like this in the league. That's what we want to see more of, obviously. And you know, the likes of Kate Flannery here being able to kick over points like this for fun is brilliant to see.
I thought it was interesting as well. Fiona Hayes made a point of obviously highlighting Ugwueru and Flannery, like everyone is. They're just so good. But
they're hard to ignore at the minute. When Chisholm Ugwueru has 12 tries, top try scored this year. You know, I think she's second in this point scoring table, and all around her all the other kickers. But yeah, look, there are other players there. I know you're going to mention probably the young hooker.
Yeah, so she highlighted Beth Buttimer, and then also, like you mentioned, Nicole Cronin, who obviously isn't playing at the minute but is still adding to the setup and providing that experience as well.
Yeah, look, I think it's great. One area that I think the RFU really need to push on for is young front rows, and particularly the areas of, like, obviously prop and hooker there, and they're just so important, particularly for Irish rugby, where we don't produce particularly big and strong players that are quite mobile, and so we tend to be dominated in certain areas just because of sheer size. So it's great to see young players coming through, and for Fiona Hayes to be obviously highlighting them. They obviously have a bit of potential there about them, so hopefully they can continue on that trajectory, get some more game time with UL Bohs, and we might see them in the future in the Munster Red or the Green of Ireland.
I also thought it was very interesting because she spoke to the IRFU before the Railway match, and she was talking about how big of a test it was, and obviously you can't dispute that in the slightest, but it's so interesting to see Fiona Hayes as a manager, because obviously we know her as a pundit and as a player for so long now, and kind of how she's operating everything. It's going very well for her.
Yeah, but I think she knows the game very well. She's played it herself to, obviously international standard for a very long time, and she got into coaching quite early. She obviously was head coach at Ballincollig, but she's been involved with the Munster coaching gig with Niamh Briggs for the last couple of years as well. So she has an awful lot of knowledge to spare, and to be honest, if she wasn't a coach, I think it'd be such a waste. And she really, really enjoys it. She obviously doesn't play herself anymore, but feels like she has something to give. She did a really good job with Ballincollig with what she had available to her, and now obviously she has what would be seen as a step up in this UL Bohs team, and is bringing them in the right direction. I don't think they'd beaten Railway in the last couple of seasons, and I may be wrong on that, but we would have always have thought that Railway had the edge there. So to turn that result around and inflicted a second defeat in a row for Railway, and wound them even more, is fantastic for her. And she'll have her eye on certain games throughout the league that she, knows are huge games to get victories in. And that was definitely one of them, I'd say, for her.
And Blackrock, of course, are hot on their heels. They bet Setonians, Ballincollig and Cook since we last spoke at the start of November. So you can see the scores and results there. But they've been getting their firepower back that we spoke about the last time, and that's definitely helped them along.
Yeah, look, obviously Blackrock are champions. You can never write them off. They had a little bit of a blip a couple of weeks ago, but they've got back on track fairly comprehensively with some of those wins, and again, another team where they have so much firepower going forward that defensively they're never challenged too much, because they have they have possession of the ball for the most time, and they certainly know how to score when they have it. But yeah, look, to be able to welcome back a number of internationals. I think their last game on the bench they had the likes of Maeve Deely, Christy Haney, and young Sarah Delaney, I think it was, as well. And so to have players of that calibre, come back from playing for Ireland and at the top level, to come off the bench and give you those kind of options, just shows kind of the strength and depth that they have. And again, they're another team who would be pushing to try and bring through a lot of younger players. But I've been really impressed by Ella Durkin, being playing in there at 10, partnered by Niamh Griffin at 9. And she probably wasn't always a natural 10. She played a little bit of centre and played at 10 a little bit for Ulster as well this year. But it's a tricky role to have, and when you're playing with a team who are so dominant, it obviously is made a little bit easier, but you often still have to make the right decisions, ensure that your try scorers are getting their hands on the ball. And I think she's been a really good link between the forward pack that have been dominating, and the back line where they have all that skill and ability to score. So she's definitely been one for me that I've seen massive improvements from, and she'll take a lot of confidence from that and being at the helm. And yeah, look, they're another team that are up there. They have been a little bit shaky, and I don't think they're as bulletproof as maybe I thought they were. So again, there'll be a few key games down the line that I'll be keeping an eye on and looking at the results, and kind of that'll really stand the test to them of where they're at.
Yeah, obviously a long way to go just yet, but you touched on Sarah Delaney there. I thought that was kind of an interesting point, because we always talk about how the Energia AIL can serve as a platform and boost your confidence in Irish or international or even provincial wise. Sarah Delaney come back now, obviously haven't had that great form in the Irish setup. Maybe she can bring that back now to the Energia AIL. Yeah,
look, and I think it's great. So she was the first player to come through all the systems, under 18, under 20, and then play senior for rugby. I think we touched on this the last episode. But for her now, she's gained a lot of knowledge, and there would have been so much learning over those last few weeks, to the point where she probably was like, I actually can't learn anymore. But she'll be able to take some of that back. And while she's still a very young player, she'll be kind of seen as one of the nearly leaders now, and that people are looking towards, and that can be, you know, a lot of pressure on a player, but for her it's an opportunity to then kind of teach those around her as well and try and improve her own game, but also help others around there, and she'll come back with loads of confidence and kind of going, I'm well able for this level, and hopefully we see her continue to kick on again, another position where we really hope to increase an awful lot of depth and improve upon.
We've picked out a few players there that are featuring well for them. Catherine Martin and Aoife Wafer, two players that are in that bracket too.
Yeah, look, delighted for Aoife Wafer. Broke onto the scene, I think it was maybe 2 years ago in the Six Nations. Got her debut off the bench up in the Kingspan against Scotland. But she's had a torrid time with injuries recently. A really, really good little flanker who's not afraid to get stuck on the ball. I think her first touch in international rugby was a jackal turnover, you know, highlighting some of her strengths. But again, big ball carrier. Been working on her skills an awful lot and improving there, but she'll just be grateful to get a run of minutes under her belt, back scoring tries, you know, and just hoping to stay injury free and have a good run to try get back into an Irish jersey.
Next up we have Old Belvedere. We were talking about them at the top of the show, two of the better players coming out there on top in for the Player of the Year, but they were victorious against Cook, as you can see here, Railway Union and Ballincollig. That middle fixture there, probably the one of most interest, of course. 6-3, that's very tight.
Yeah, look, obviously there are two other games, fairly handy victories in the end, not really challenged too much, scoring tries for fun and enjoying themselves a little bit and getting their confidence up. But the big one for them, and again, it would have been a key fixture, was the Railway game. You know, and well, Railway aren't very far away. They're on down the road. It was still an away fixture for Belvedere, and for them to come out at the end of a really, really tight game. So this game was basically won on defence. Very, very rare in a women's game to have no tries scored, to be honest. But again, in tough conditions, both teams had lots and lots of chances. It was a really back and forth game, but there were some really key turnovers in both 22s. There was intercept passes. You know, this game was played in a knife edge and was ultimately decided by two Gemma Farrell penalties to win it towards the end. And Railway went in at the end of the first half 3-0 up, despite both sides having lots and lots of possession. But delighted for Old Belvedere, obviously, to come out in the end of it. First time, I think, winning against Railway since like 2018, I think it was. Yeah. And, you know, look, it's great for them. Tanya Ross will be delighted. Their team's gone the right direction. They, again, have a couple of really young players in the likes of Emma Tilley and Katie Corrigan going really, really well. But for me, a key player that I can't wait to watch again, I hope she gets another shot in an Ireland jersey, is Ruth Campbell in the second row. Just causing chaos. She is a destructive monster in the most positive way possible. Watching that game, she took line out after line out from Railway Union, and they basically couldn't get any platform going, and she had steal after steal and just frustrated them all evening and gave Old Belvedere plenty of opportunities to win possession back. And it's been a long time since we've produced a young second row that we can really improve upon, and I think she could have a really great career for Leinster and Ireland, and she can run as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. She kind of reminds me of a Ryan Bháird, where kind of that explosive and that bit of athleticism, but also knows how to do the grunt work and the typical forward stuff of the line out and scrum. So yeah, look, Belvedere in a really good position. They'll be massively buoyed by that Railway win, and you know, that fixture period coming out with 3 from 3, and yeah, they'll be looking forward to the year ahead, going, this is our chance and this is our year, and I definitely think they're up there.
Promising stuff, I'd say, especially when you touch on that's their first win against Railway since December 2018. Do you think, in coupled with, I guess, how well UL Bohs are going, do you think it's suggestive of a more competitive Energia AIL overall? I know we're still talking about top 4, but that's probably the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, I think if you look at the results between Railway and Belvedere, and even like Belvedere and Blackrock over the last number of years, the games have actually been really tight. Belvedere just haven't been able to get over the line. You know, they've been one score games kind of thing, but just coming out in the wrong end of it. But I do think it's a bit of a flip the switch moment to actually get over the line and win this one for them, and kind of going, there's a belief there, we can do this, and we definitely have it. And there's a mentality to winning that, and a gritty win at 6-3. But look, there are some very competitive fixtures in the women's AAL, and then unfortunately there are some very one-sided fixtures, and that's something that, you know, will take time and development with some of these, you know, teams who are only in the league a couple of years. But yeah, look, the tide is turning a little bit. I think, you know, Railway Union probably aren't as strong as they have been in previous years, and there are opportunities, and teams are recognising some of those weaknesses and exploiting them. And I think that's a big thing we've seen improvement, is analysis over the last number of years has improved massively, and teams are recognising where other teams maybe are strong and are weak, and are trying to, you know, get the results based on that.
Well, speak of the devil, Railway Union are up next. We've obviously covered quite a lot of these fixtures, as you'll see here, the Old Belvedere one, UL Bohs, and they also had that massive win over Wicklow as well. What do they kind of do from here? Because we're talking about there, maybe the other teams progressing along. How do Railway Union course correct?
Yeah, look, this is probably a position that Railway haven't been in for a while, in that they had 2 successive defeats there, both to obviously, you know, top teams in UL Bohs and Old Belvedere, but that would sting and that would smart. And I can't remember the last time they've lost 2 games in a row. But there probably is a little bit of a changing of the guard. They still have the likes of Lindsay Pete's still going strong for them. Claire Johan has actually returned from travelling. Nikki Cohy's around. They're all really experienced players and doing really well for them. But they probably have lost a little bit of firepower in the back line in particular. They've had a couple of players, unfortunately for them, who've gone off travelling, particularly Stephanie Carroll, who's been their kind of speedster on the wing, been able to score a lot of tries from recently. Aoife Doyle is injured. They have a lot of sevens players who haven't been available to them at all this year, and they're mostly, you know, backs and stuff like that. So for them, I suppose it's, can they develop young players in the back line that can be at the standard required to, you know, beat the big teams when they come in, and those top 4 teams. It is a bit of a hard job for Stephen Costello. As I said, the structures and the way they want to play and all is there, but have they got the players who are actually able to step in and fill the boots of maybe past players? And that last victory they had, the fairly convincing one over Wicklow, 78-10 I think it was, that'll kind of give them back a little bit more confidence and go, okay, no, calm it down a little bit. We're still in this. There's still a long way to go, you know, and just settle them a little bit before they go back into the next run of fixtures. But teams will definitely target them and say they're not the team of old, and that happens every few years when you're dominating, you're doing well. That doesn't last forever. But you know, Railway will have an edge to them now that they need to get back on track, and you'd want to be wary of them.
It's all getting very exciting. We'll take a quick break now. Here's some insight into the personality of our Energia AIL players.
You're an animal. What animal would you be, and why? Probably a cheetah, so it'll be fast. Maybe a giraffe, because I always get told I'm a bit small. Cheetah for speed. Yeah, okay. So I'm not that fast on the pitch anyway. I'd be a rabbit because I love myself. I'd be a goat because I play dead when the going gets tough.
I'm going to say dogs because who doesn't like dogs?
You go for it.
I would be an elephant because I have really good memory. Also, that's how I feel like an elephant when I'm on the pitch.
If I had to be an animal, I'd be a dog because they're happy, they're friendly, live their best life.
What kind of dog? What breed?
I think it's a little like sausage dog. Yeah. Actually, no, do not put that on camera. Be a sausage dog. Oh, I quit.
If you were an animal, Hannah, who would you be, or what would you be? Putting you on the spot.
Most people would probably tell me I'm a giraffe all the time anyway. But I don't know. I'd want to say something like lion or something like that because I think I'm real brave and all. But dog is a good shout. They're happy. Everyone likes them. They're friendly. Yeah. Not a sausage dog though.
Plenty of insight there, as you can see. Maybe not of the tactical kind, but of the personality type anyways. Welcome back to the HerSport Energia AIL show. We still have lots to come for you. We're going to have a look at the bottom half of the table now. We'll start with Ballincollig. We obviously have Setonians there, middle as well. Will we start with those two, Hannah? Any kind of standout thoughts of
yeah, look, Ballincollig, I suppose, in that period would be pretty disappointed. You know, they're mid-table there. They've had a couple of wins, you know, and they'd be fairly happy with that, but they had 3 losses in a row there. Mike Peterman won't be too happy with that. 3 fairly comprehensive losses as well. Now again, against, you know, teams on the top side, so maybe not games they targeted that they were going to win anyway, but they would have hoped to maybe put up a little bit better of a fight or result. And defensively, I think between the 3 games they conceded over 100 plus points easily. So for them, I think they'll be glad those fixtures are over and try kind of forget about them, take whatever positives they can, and move on to the next few games. And again, we'll have games that they've targeted going, this is where we need to get our points, this is how we start to move up the table, and if we can get some points from some of the top teams, and that's a bonus from there. But they'd be fairly disappointed and wanted to just move on fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'd say the losses to UL Bohs, Blackrock and then Old Belvedere. Suttonians, on the other hand, obviously did have that loss to Blackrock 33-12, but then they came out on the right side against Galwegians 12-5. That would have been a nice one for them.
Yeah, look, and Rob Ingham has taken over from them this year, and they've been a bit of a mixed bag. When I played them over the last couple of seasons, when I was involved with Old Belvedere, they were a really tough team to beat. They played a really high tempo offloading game. They never gave up for the 80 minutes. They always came back and managed to score a try and loved the quick tap kind of thing. This year they have more of the same in that, but also just some silly mistakes and decision making, system errors. Their handling at times hasn't been great, has led to some poor results, and I kind of would have hoped that they had started to improve and try and challenge up the table a little bit more, but unfortunately that hasn't happened for them. But they did get that win over Galwegians. They've been really boosted by the return of Lauren Fowler McCabe from travelling. Mary Healy has always been a standout for them, and they have a couple of new players that have come in, and I think that's a big thing for Suttonians. They're one of the Dublin clubs, and probably wouldn't be a club that a lot of players, when they move to Dublin, would think of transferring to, but they have developed a couple of good young players, and they need to try and expand that and try and, I suppose, take some players that have come in and stop them going from the likes of Railway and Old Belvedere and stuff like that. And there's an opportunity there for players to develop and do really well and get lots of game time while still being fairly competitive. But they'll be disappointed with that Blackrock result, just conceding 33 points in that regard. That's not how they would like to play, but they'd be happy enough that they did score 12 points, considering Blackrock don't actually give up many tries, but definitely improvements upon there, and they'll be hoping they can leapfrog Ballincollig over the next couple of rounds.
And the next 2 points we're going to touch on are a bit of a funny run of results. So Wicklow obviously bet Cook 17-14, and then Galwegians actually bet Wicklow 12-5. So there's plenty going on here at this side of the table.
Yeah, and I think this side of the table, a lot of the teams are fairly evenly matched, and that's why we're seeing those results. A lot of really, really tight results, with only one score differences. And Wicklow last year, their second year in the AIL, they had a real resurgence, and they'd kind of got to grips with it. And this year they seem to be struggling a little bit more. And for me, they win one game and then they almost lose to Cook, and it's very frustrating, I'm sure. And for Jason Morton, he has some quality players in there. We've touched on the likes of Ella and Beth Roberts before, and they have Saoirse O'Reilly, I think it is, scored a hat-trick for them in one of their most recent matches. So they do have young players coming through, and they have the Malloy sisters, but they just can't seem to... They've always been a really good team who play for each other and work together. They lost the experience of the likes of Niamh Drummond. I think that's been a big thing for them. She has lots of AIL experience, previous Sevens international, and I think she was probably a big factor in how they kind of approach games and stick together when things aren't going right. And she was a really good leader for them. And I think they're probably struggling a little bit with that experience. And for them this year, they've just struggled to put on a consistent performance, and that's very, very frustrating, because as I said, they do have talented players, but they'd be kind of wiping their brow a little bit with relief over that Wicklow result, or that Cook result, because at halftime they went in 14-5 down, and they managed to come back, and that does show really good spirit and hard work and resilience and all the rest. But it's a tough one. They've kind of been a little bit disappointing for me, and I hope that changes and their fortune changes, because I do have a bit of a soft spot for them and I want to see them do well.
And then on the other side of things, Galwegians falling short to Suttonians, but getting the win over Wicklow.
Yeah, and again, they've just been a team again that are struggling with consistencies, play some really good games and do some really, really nice things in matches, and then other times you're looking at them going, oh my God, why did you do that? And again, it's frustrating. Have some really good players. As I mentioned, they still haven't got Nicole Fowley back. She unfortunately has a slight injury, I think, and they've been missing her and her experience. But they do still have lots of experience there, and the likes of Grace Brown-Moran's been around a long time. Orla Dixon's been there for them, and it's just a frustrating one. I think we're seeing like they win, then they lose, then they win, then they lose, and they can't get a run of confidence going and like momentum and everything else, and that can be a big driver for teams. So for them, I think they'll be highlighting the next batch of games and going, okay, if we can get at least 2 wins here, and then we drive on that and build on that and build on our performances and take the positives and work, obviously bring them to the next game, and then take the negatives and see can we improve upon them for the next game. But there's a lot of in these bottom teams, is that inconsistency is what lets them down a little bit, and the promise that they show one week, you can't see it the next week, and I'm sure that's frustrating from a coaching point of view as well, and something that they'll be trying to work on and see how they can improve.
Finally, it must be difficult as well for Cook. I know these big score lines and then struggling to pick up a win or points, having to go on the road as well. It just must be so difficult to, I suppose, get yourself up for it. Yeah, look, we spoke about Cook last year as well. They've had a tough couple of seasons, and with Malone folding, I was really hopeful that a lot of those players would move to Cook, and probably hasn't materialised to give them a little bit of depth. They have been boosted recently by the return of Ilse van Staden, former Irish international, and she did score in the most recent game, but they are the only team to not have won this year. And that is really tough. As you said, they do an awful lot of travelling. They're their only team in the north, and for them it's very disheartening. That Wicklow game, I'm sure, was really, really tough to take. They deserved to win it. I thought they would win it in the end, but unfortunately they couldn't put in their first half performance in the second half and couldn't maintain that for 80 minutes, and I was willing them to win, but unfortunately sport doesn't always work that way. And I think a big thing for Cook is, can they keep this band of players together and try and develop them over the few years and stick with it? And while they're not getting the results right now, hopefully they can see that they are on a path and they are improving. It's just that it is a slow process for them. But yeah, hopefully they can continue to recruit players. I do know that their coaching and their underage structures is working really well, so it's really nice of them to have a pathway there, and hopefully they can really develop that and start to see that materialise in those senior players. Well, plenty of rugby to come your way. We've 2 more game weeks coming up this month in December, and then we'll be back with you in February. A long time to go until then, but which is the one standing out to you there? I see one anyways there, Hannah. Railway Union, Blackrock.
Look, to be honest, I actually think all of these fixtures are really good for the league and really good for these teams. So I think all 4 of these fixtures are going to be very, very competitive. Ballincollig, Galwegians, they've been, as I mentioned, highly inconsistent, but they'd be eyeing this fixture, both wanting to get a win here. Same with Old Belvedere, UL Bohs. I know for a fact that Old Belvedere will be hoping that they can knock them off the top spot, and again Railway Union, Blackrock both want to get back on track and get their season back in. And a loss for any of these teams, including Suetonians, Wicklow, can really put a dent in their hopes for how they want to do this season. And I think they're all going to be very, very competitive and very close games, and it's exactly what we want to see over the next couple of weeks.
Of course, there is a long, long way to go in the season just yet, but we checked in with you at the start of the season to see what your predictions might be. We're not quite at the halfway point just yet, but seeing as we're not back for a little while, we said we'd check back in with what you said and see if there are any revised predictions maybe.
Okay.
Any thoughts off the bat? It's been a long time since then even.
I'm trying to remember what I said, to be honest, but we'll see how we go.
So yeah, heading into the Christmas break, we said we'd check back in with this. So it was a quick fire round, but maybe we'll just get your reactions to what you were saying. You said top try scorer. Do you remember who you said?
She hasn't played much. I think I might have said Anna Doyle. Yeah, unfortunately, I think Anna Doyle's struggling with a shoulder injury at the minute, so hasn't actually played much. She's been hiking half of Ireland instead to stay fit. So that prediction has gone down terribly. look, it's hard to look past now. If I was to change my mind, it's hard to look past Ugwueru with 12 tries. With the return of a lot of internationals, you know, some other players might prop up there from the likes of, you know, Old Belvedere or you know, Railway Union if they were to get someone like Aoife Doyle back. But 12 tries is hard to chase down. So, and I can't see her form changing anytime soon. So I'm sure Ugwueru will be up there at the end of it.
Maybe that fits then for biggest breakout star as well. You previously said Leisha McGonigal, so
yeah, and Leisha gone really well, but I think for me, I am going to change that. I'm going to have two, Kay Flannery and Katie Corrigan of Belvedere. I think they're just going to be superstars for the future, and both of them are scoring tries and kicking points for fun. Chisholm is up there too, but I can't pick her for everything.
Outstanding fly half, you went with Nicole Fowley.
Yeah, because I thought she'd had a really good season, but again, she hasn't featured for Galwegians this year. So for me, Ella Durkin so far has taken that nod.
And another one who has sadly not featured much this season, our overall player of the year, you went with Deirbhile Nic of Bháird. Might have to alter that one slightly.
Yeah, it's hard when you're halfway through the season. There's been an awful lot of standouts. For me, I will go with... I'm going to go with Kay Flannery. I just think young 10, I know she's not playing 10, but she plays like a 10 in that backline for UL Bohs and a team that's doing really well, and she seems to be the standout. So I'm not putting too much pressure on her young shoulders, but she's shown me a lot of potential so far.
Deadly duo or trio, you went with Blackrock's back row. They're still a force to be reckoned with, but obviously, as you say, given all the internationals, haven't really had much playing time together, that kind of way.
Yeah, no, look, I think they'll come back. If they do end up getting plenty of game time, I do still think they're the back row, the best back row across all the club teams. You know, and as a 3, yeah, I'm going to stick with them, and hopefully they'll play loads and prove me right, because I don't think I've got anything else right so far.
You might have best defender, you put down Leslie Ring, who would you say has been standout?
Yeah, there's been a couple of standouts. I do think Leslie Ring's been great. She is one of those, again, that does a lot of the grunt work for Old Belvedere. Probably doesn't get the recognition maybe that she deserves, but yeah, I'm going to stick with Leslie there.
Perfect. Underdog striker, I think you'll be sticking with as well. You said Wicklow.
Yeah. Oh, no, Wicklow haven't been the team I thought they would be this year. But I'm still going to root for them because I do like them. But no, actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to root for Cook because I think there's a win there this season for them. So I'm going to change that and go for Cook.
Hopefully we see that. All right, semi-finalists, you were fairly on the ball. Old Belvedere, Railway, Blackrock and UL Bohs. You're looking good there so far.
Yeah, I don't think, unless something drastic happens, I don't think that's going to change too much.
And then overall winner, you went with Blackrock. Are you revising that one just yet or sticking with your guns?
I don't know. Like my head says Blackrock, but my heart is saying Old Belvedere. But I can't count out UL Bohs. It's really tight. Part of me doesn't also want to say UL Bohs because I want. No. And no, look, UL Bohs are the front runners at the minute. There is a long way to go, but there are some tasty fixtures coming up. So ask me again after that Old Belvedere UL Bohs fixture in a few weeks.
Lovely. Well, we'll be checking back in, of course, in our next episode. I think that's coming your way in February time. A long, long time away, it feels yet, but I'm sure it'll fly by. For now, though, thanks for joining us, Hannah.
No worries. I look forward to the next couple of weeks of action, and we can all recap that after Christmas.
For sure. For now, though, you've been listening to the HerSport Energia AIL Rugby Show. Be sure you like, subscribe and comment with your thoughts. We're really close to hitting 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, so please be sure to subscribe. For now, though, thanks for joining us.